Welcome back to another Ticks and Trades market recap. Today is Tuesday, July 8th. The last video we made was last week on Wednesday the 2nd, and that was when we identified this zone here we'll talk about in a minute. Just a couple dashed lines, and they gapped above that the next day on July 3rd. We'll talk about more details. We can kind of take a look at a 10-minute chart right now just to show you. Here was Wednesday, they gapped above July 3rd. Market was closed July 4th, so here's Monday and Tuesday, and they've kind of messed around with this zone most of the time. We'll talk about the importance of this later, but essentially the bulls need to get back on top of this thing to go higher, and currently they're below. I just want to interrupt this to point out that after I recorded this recap, I noticed that the dog barking in the background came through pretty loud and clear at times. I'm on a working vacation, kind of a quasi-working vacation, and I really can't do anything about it. The dog just barked the entire time. Now he's pretty quiet. So it is what it is. At some cabins here on one of the Great Lakes. And I'm not the only person here vacationing, so I've got to respect their space as well. But anyway, I apologize for the barking dog. So we're going to catch up with the daily levels and the game plans for the last few days. This is Thursday, July 3rd. You can see the two zones. The top one came into play between 624.33, 623.66. And if you need to pause the video to read through the notes and the commentary before the market opened to know what we were working with going into the day, then you can do so right now. Here's a screenshot of the 1-minute chart before the market opened on Thursday. Between the vertical dotted lines is Thursday. It was a partial day. Market closed 1 o'clock Eastern because of the Independence holiday on the 4th. So the zone between 623.66 and 624.33 were the only levels that came into play. So they came up close here. It was a little early at 9:39 a.m. within pennies, fell away. I actually took a trade here. We'll watch the video of that shortly. But then if you waited for the first 15 minutes to go by and then got into trade after that, you would have gone short here around 9:46, 9:47, and you would have gone short again at the next level up, top of the zone, because there was no reaction there. Your average entry price in the middle of here would have given you a 10-point fumble as they continued to go higher. Reversing that trade would have given you a base hit as they went higher. So Thursday would have put you behind the curve if you were playing by the rules. It happens sometimes. As it turned out, the only trade I got was right here. And before we watch the recording, let's go through the next day, which is the 7th. That's yesterday, because the market was closed on Friday the 4th. So here is the 7th. I'm going to adjust the levels. We'll talk about the levels that were hit. Come back to this chart in a minute. Let's look at the levels first. Here were the levels sent out. Not a whole lot of them. This is yesterday, July 7th. And you can read through the notes per usual. Still talking about that zone, 621.30, 621.40. That's the long-term zone. We'll come back to the daily chart to discuss. So a lot of notes. As it turned out, not a whole lot happened yesterday. But anyway, this is what we had going into the day. Here's the entire day on the 1-minute chart. The only two levels that came into play were 621.48 and 620.46. And these are just independent levels, so you would adjust these with a 5-cent buffer. So 621.48 became 621.53. Around 11:22 a.m., they came within 3 pennies. The low was 621.56, and they gave a base hit right here. So that's a near miss. You don't want to mess with this level again. They did bounce there twice, but the third time they fell through. That's what you're trying to avoid. So can't count this. No trade because of the near miss at that level. If you were waiting to buy at 620.46 per the rules, you would have given this time to play out. You would have been given a base hit quickly after being out of the money a little bit, but it didn't violate any rules. So you have one base hit over here at 620.46. We could talk about a recycle trade, but it didn't really work because even with a buffer, that's 620.41, they never got up to it. Even here, they got to a high of 620.39, and it's getting toward the end of the day. So anyway, one base hit trade right here. Maybe not the easiest trade to take, but it fits within the parameters of our strategy. I'll move over to today, but first we're going to look at the daily levels and the game plan that were sent out, or at least made available this morning to subscribers. Here we are, number of levels. You can take note of those and read through the notes at your leisure. Still talking about that trend line. So 621.50 was that area. That was kind of an access point. Didn't really see it as a tradable level. I think I said that somewhere. I'm not sure it's a tradable level unless it becomes clear what price will do with it, either get above or stay below. I never took a trade there. I'm not going to count any trades, but that was the one level that was messed around with all day long, the one access point. and they're below, so that might mean something. But anyway, there are your notes, and here's a screenshot of the chart before the market opened. Back to the 1 minute chart. It's pretty clear to see that this 621.50 was important all day. Not going to count it though, because I said I'm not trading it. Didn't advise anyone else to trade it, although if you chose to trade it, you would have been given at least one base hit or more as they continue to bounce off of this thing. But they never got above it for at least an extended period of time. They tried, and I'll just go ahead and tell you about my trade here. So when they were on their way back up here, I jumped on board, something I don't normally do, but I thought this was probably a fake out. They're going to at least attempt this zone, this trend line area. That's where it comes from, by the way. The 621.50 comes from an important trend line. I thought they're going to attempt this thing again, so I went long around here, 4 contracts. Immediately I was in the money for a little bit, but I wanted a base hit somewhere up here somewhere. I got out of the money, came down, I just withstood it, got back above, and then this is where I got my profit right here. And unfortunately, there is no recording of it. It was 4 contracts. I got 5 points total, so $1,000 even before commissions. But there is no recording. I thought I had it recorded until 3 o'clock or so, and I was closing up shop and realized I never started the recording in the morning. I had it all set up and never clicked the button. Anyway, you just have to take my word for it. That was my one trade. There is no official trade for today because of the game plan and just what we had going into the day. This was supposed to be an access point, just a reference level to see if they can get above or stay below. Obviously, they're below, so we'll talk about that in a minute. So here are the live recordings, starting with last Thursday, July 3rd. And here's one base hit that I got. Like I mentioned earlier, I got this a little prematurely. It was before that 15-minute window had elapsed, but I was able to pull a 4-point base hit right there and just let it go. And so I didn't get caught in this playing by the rules, which, you know, sometimes it works. I don't know why, I just had a feeling that I should go earlier and take that trade earlier, and it panned out. But that was all I did, and I let this thing go for most of the day, maybe the entire day, but no more trades. I guess I stopped it around 1:30 or so. Friday, of course, was the holiday, and then here is Monday. I'm just showing you Monday just to show you that I didn't take any trades. I had some orders in the system ready to buy down here at 621.48 for a long position to get into a long trade. When they got down there, I'll scrub ahead here and I'll show you. They got close, but I missed it. They didn't get low enough. But they bounced, so that's a near miss. So no trade there, and I didn't attempt any other trades. In fact, I was away from my computer when they fell down a couple times, went off the screen. So rectified that, adjusted the charts, did the same thing. They went back off the screen again. So I just let this thing run until the end of the day. As I said, I don't have a recording for today on Tuesday. I do have the one base hit, which we'll look at in the logs. In fact, here are the logs right now. 3 days, all the notes. You can read through the notes. So the biggest issue here was Thursday because they gapped above that zone. It continued higher. Going short for counter trend trades did not work out so well. You would have given some points back. Got a little bit of a redemption trade on the reversal. A couple base hits, so you can read through the notes on that. Then the one base hit. This is played by the rules log here. The one base hit on Monday, and then no trades at all today if you were strictly playing by the rules and not using that 621.50 as a tradable level. And then over here on the Sam's trades, the base hit on Thursday, no trades on Monday. You saw the recording of that, just nothing happened. Then I happened to get 5 points on 4 contracts today, and here's where I landed for the last few days. Back to the daily chart. So they're flirting with this zone. The more they do it, the less important it becomes. It was pretty important on Wednesday. I was going to look at a 10-minute chart again so we can see it in more detail. It was pretty important here when this became apparent that this was going to be an area that they could react off of. But a lot of times when the market knows a level is important, instead of coming right up into it during the open session and bouncing off, up or down, they'll gap over it in the pre-market session, like overnight. If you looked at the futures, why don't we do that right now? Let's see, where are we? So here's the pre-market, 4 a.m. You can see they bounced off of this level. Not a whole lot here, but they worked at it all night, got above it. So when they opened right here in the morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, they took off. So what you end up seeing in the regular session is something like this. Where did my levels go? Here we go. Doesn't mean it's not important. In fact, when they came back down to it, it's been important the last couple days because the bulls are trying to stay on top of this thing and the bears want price to go lower. So it's still important. We'll see what happens in the long term, but that whole timing component is pretty important in the terms of the weekly chart. Why don't we look at a weekly chart? Now what I'm talking about here is the time it's taken them from this low here back in April of this year to get to where they're at. This week here, I mean, we need to see a signal first, but the timing alone is somewhat indicative or sometimes results in a trend change, or at least a pullback. You'll see interim pullbacks as prices continue up. Now, it could take a while. I mean, we're still in the middle of this week here, just getting started, and it's a slow kind of summer doldrums. July 4th weekend and the week after here, don't expect a whole lot of volatility. But the point is, the timing is important, and we could see some type of pullback based on timing alone. But currently, they're fighting this zone. Until we see a clear signal on any of the charts, daily, 4-hour, 3-hour, 2-hour, any of the multi-hour charts that I like to track, we're just going to call it like it is. They're fighting an important zone. They might be running out of time, and the big picture is still bullish. You cannot discount that fact. How long have we been saying this as they've been climbing this whole thing here? It's hard to kill a bull. There's been no obvious signals like we've had back here when there was some very strong downward pressure for several days that ultimately ended up pushing price down. Of course, we had a lot of tariff talk back here, and they're starting to talk about that again. So wouldn't it be kind of interesting if that kind of coincides with a bigger term trend change back down? Too early to say, just sharing my thoughts. So that's our catch up through today, Tuesday, July 8th. I'll be back tomorrow morning with new levels and a new game plan. You know the drill. Thanks for watching. I hope you found value. I'll talk to you again soon. Have a great rest of your day.